Okay, aside from the planning aspect, this episode was all about the emotions. Unfortunately, mine got hit a bit too early, but that's not the show's fault. Also, we've had at least 5 cameos from Team Parodies / Levi Squad characters in just the first 2 episodes of the season. That's pretty freaking awesome. Hello listeners, and welcome to A Dash of Salt with AJ. I'm your host, Ahsoka Jackson. So, people decided to once again put huge spoilers in thumbnails and video titles, and once again I was spoiled. This time about episode 2. The good news is that my suspicion or prediction about having a special cameo this episode was confirmed, so I was happy about that, and even more happy about the fact of the cameo itself. But I'm actually really upset right now, because I feel like an extremely cool thing was robbed of its emotional impact. That actually felt like a real gut punch for me. I have a great deal of emotional investment in this story, as I'm sure many of you do. And this is also one of the particular characters I'm extra fond of. So yeah, that really hurt, and I'm hoping to avoid stuff like this in the future. And as an anime mostly, this is a whole section of the story that I've largely been able to avoid getting a lot of spoiler info about, the first dozen or so chapters after season 3. Plus there's the fact that things are going to be tweaked for the anime, and the pacing of scenes may differ from the manga anyways. Like that really cool cameo from John we have already had, that wasn't in the manga. So the spoilers really do matter and have a unpleasant impact, to say the least. Still, I really did enjoy the episode overall. It was really great continuing to get a picture of what the lives of the Eldians within Marley are like, both in civilian and military contexts. We got to find out the official ranks or titles of different characters, and we also got to see how Zeke was treated due to his Eldian heritage, even as someone who clearly had an important command position and was also known for his talent. Granted, he's certainly had failures, but we've also seen in previous seasons, and a little bit in this one already, just how effectively he can operate. But you gotta love all the wonderful freaking suggestions he comes up with. Let's go try to conquer Paradise again. Yay! Let's have a big speech where we remind the world how dangerous Eldians are. Dude, what? That's supposed to help improve things for your people within Marley? That? I'm also pretty disturbed right now because I know a little bit about that speech, which we got to hear some of in the season 4 trailer, I believe. And now it's sounding like Zeke actually set up a provocation that leads to some of the horrific stuff that happens later on. That's not a spoiler. Horrific stuff happens every season, and stirring the pot about how evil and dangerous Eldians are does not seem like the sort of thing that leads to good vibes, right? What exactly is this? Is this entrapment, or is this setting the bait for something that would have happened anyways so you can get ahead of it? This story just got darker for me. And once again, I think my desire to see Zeke get his butt kicked has substantially increased. Actually, I think I just figured out what he was actually trying to do here, but I'm still pretty ticked right now. Ugh. By the way, it seems kind of ironic that they regard King Fritz so negatively for withdrawing from the fighting and wars, and basically going off to create an isolated world where they weren't disturbing anyone else. You'd think they'd be happy about that, although of course they consider the Founding Titans as being stolen, which I don't currently agree with. Okay, what else? Other characters now. Okay, it was good to hear something about the Tiber family. That's almost a complete blind spot for me, so I'm glad to have some info about them now. Although for them to participate in Zeke's plan here, stirring up the world against the Eldians, who as a whole are already being treated and viewed awfully, and especially for the Tibers to do that while they're getting to live relatively safe and comfortable lives themselves, that just sounds really jacked up. Alright, how about the rest of our new characters? Well, it was great hearing their voices. Peak has like a softer, higher voice than I was anticipating, so basically the opposite of what happened with Gabby. But it seems to suit her really well, especially with that very maternal vibe she has. I love her with the children, and even mediating between Galliard and Reiner. She's funny too. Could we not hassle the guy who just took a can to the face? She's great. Oh, and it was kind of adorable how she's still in cart Titan mode and was lying on the couch in the same position she'd use in Titan form. It's like how I joke about a friend's being part feline. Anyway, speaking of the exchange with Galliard, our main shot of him as a human in the season 4 trailer showed him glaring, but I definitely wasn't prepared for his being that bristly. but I think maybe he's like Levi in that regard. In either way, the fact is that he excels at his job, and he has your back when you need him. We got to see him save Gabby, Falco, and Reiner in a single episode, and Reiner's a pretty veteran fighter as both a human and a Titan. I feel like people sometimes prioritize the wrong things and then undervalue what really matters, so even though, yes, he seems pretty harsh, I hope he still gets a lot of appreciation. Everything I've seen of him here and elsewhere has shown to be really legit, so as long as he doesn't do anything substantially messed up and turn evil or something, he definitely deserves plenty of credit and respect from the audience. Heck, if he did go straight up evil, I'd still have to grudgingly admit how reliable and competent he's otherwise been. Alright, now we come to Reiner. First off, it was great getting to see both his family and everyone else's. I hadn't really been expecting that, especially since normally these would be the kind of characters we barely see or spend time with. Like in Attack on Titan, we mainly just see glimpses of families waiting in vain for loved ones to return, like when Petra and the rest of Squad Levi were wiped out. It's unexpected and also very ironic. The main happy reunions we're getting are for characters on what has been the enemy side for us. They're Eldians, of course, and Marley itself still treats them as enemies, but they are also Marlians and fighting on its behalf, though their actions are increasingly understandable at this point. But you definitely see what the author is doing in terms of helping us sympathize and empathize with the opposite side now. We're seeing them under more relaxed circumstances, where we can observe them more as people rather than strictly as enemies plotting to wipe out the Scout Regiment like it's usually been. And it really was neat to get scenes like that with Reiner's family. And people had already been spoiling this in video titles, but yeah, Gabby is apparently Reiner's cousin. By the way, I hadn't realized how much distance there was between Liberia, what an ironic name by the way, and the location where we saw Gabby and the rest fighting. Anyways, speaking of sympathy and empathy, we saw how Reiner struggles with nightmares and stuff. It is a bit amusing to be able to say that Mikasa kicked his butt so well that he still has nightmares of her. Imagine if she'd been the one he was always talking about marrying. But on a serious level, that really is rough. 4 years later, he's still having vivid nightmares. We saw him as an enemy, and sort of a monster in the literal sense and probably metaphorical sense as well. But this is another example of how vulnerable he is. That was a great transition, by the way, how they moved from Zeke's memories of Levi to Reiner's memories of Mikasa. Okay, so I don't want to cut things too close with the time limit, so I think this is a good place to take a break. In the next part, I'll continue what I was saying about Reiner and the other Eldian soldiers, plus talk about the interactions with Falco and Reiner, and also between Reiner and Gabby, and probably a little bit about the animation as well if I have time. In the meantime, I look forward to hearing your impressions of this episode, and also any Easter eggs you might have noticed. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please don't forget to subscribe for updates and leave a like, share, or review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, iHeartRadio, social media, or whichever platform you use to listen. Be blessed and stay salty.